Welcome back to Heard You Like It Raw. I'm your host, Nicolina. Hope you all are thriving today. Oh, fuck. I completely mixed up the part that I was going to say. This is always fun. uh, I also just got a text from like my business partner at the same time. So like that threw me off. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Heard You Like It Raw. I'm your host, Nicolina, diving deep into the raw truths of life. Hope you all are thriving today. How are my little goddies doing? And yes, again, I said goddies. That's gender neutral for all gods and goddesses and non-binaries. Thank you so much for tuning in and for showing up for yourself today. I have the pleasure of interviewing Rohith Amruthur, founder of the 1% Travel Club. He has had a lifelong fascination with travel and is on a mission to make unforgettable travel experiences accessible to everyone and encourage people to see the world and experience more of the world. Rohit, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So exciting. When we connected, I was like, no, you have to come on and talk about this stuff just because I love travel, but it's so important because I've had so many people my whole life be like, oh, I can't travel or I can't go on that trip that you're planning because I can't afford it. And it's people like you that really make it possible. So, do you mind telling everybody a little bit about what exactly you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my whole thing is I help people create unforgettable travel experiences while saving thousands. And my whole thing is that traveling is such a it's such a rewarding experience, and I don't think it should be gate kept by money. The other amazing thing about travel is that it's one of those things where, if you want to buy something really expensive normally, I mean, it's hard to find ways to get around the money barrier. However, with travel, there are so many ways you can get around it,
Mhm.
and it's kind of a game almost to see how you can do that. But at the end of the day, I truly believe that everyone should be able to experience amazing travel experiences. And like I said, not have money be a barrier. And it doesn't have to be a barrier.
Entirely. Yeah, and just it's literally just a little education thing. And I wish, you know, whole reason why I do this podcast is to highlight things that it's like they should be teaching us this, like we should be able to know more opportunities around the world to take. And if it's interested, if it's more accessible. How did you get into this?
Yeah. So when I was young, my father traveled a ton for work. I remember when I was like 8 years old, he was on a trip where he went to like 5 continents in 2 weeks.
Nice.
It was pretty insane, but yeah, he would travel a lot for work, and I was always just very fascinated by that.
Mhm.
Um, he would tell all these stories. He would talk about all these cool places that he went. And when we would travel as a family, he was like, yeah, I pay with these things called miles. I don't actually pay cash. And I remember being like, oh, interesting. Tell me more. And
Yeah.
so I got kind of obsessed with it. And then when I went to college and I didn't have very much money, I found a way to use points and miles and understand them to a
Hmm.
point where I was able to travel as well and save money while traveling.
Hmm.
And so when I figured that out, I was like, oh, I might be onto something here. And it wasn't just points and miles, it was kind of like a whole strategy, an all encompassing strategy.
Yeah.
And I started to teach that to people. And that's how I got to doing what I do as a business.
Oh, super cool. Yeah, super fascinating. I always tried certain things when I've always been kind of good at finding that, at least using different websites to find cheaper flights and using my points when I could and everything. Because I knew that was good, but I think you took it to a completely different level and literally you say you like basically created your own strategy for it and own process in a way, right?
Yeah. And the one thing that I emphasize about my strategies, it's a very long-term strategy. I think a lot of people are looking for like quick hacks and stuff, short-term hacks, which they're out there, but they're
Hmm.
only going to get you so far. And if that's what you're looking for, then I'm not your person. I'm talking about long-term, all of that.
Yeah.
Um, and the reason I do that is because if I hadn't thought long-term, my strategy would not have survived COVID, which it
Mhm.
did.
Yeah.
If I made any changes to my strategy during COVID or after COVID, it was not because of COVID. It was a change I was probably going to make anyway.
Yeah, no, entirely. And I think that's important so people can now get in that disciplined mindset of like accumulating it over time. And like actually, you're a prime example of actually seeing the results of that going from looking far into the future and taking those measurable steps rather than getting the gratification all right now, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, you did bring up COVID. You launched it during COVID and then everything shut down, right?
It was, yeah, it was a month before COVID. It was actually, so it's February now, so this was exactly 4 years ago. Uh
Wow. Isn't that
my
crazy that it
It's
was 4 years
insane.
ago? Oh
And
my God.
I don't think we're still done processing it.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Um yes, because my birthday is in February, and I remember after my birthday I was like, all right, I'm gonna make a real business out of this.
Mhm,
And so that's when I started it. And yeah, and then everything shut down a month later. And then it was kind of upsetting too, because I had a couple clients, like test clients, that I was like, all right, I'm gonna charge you a lot less than I normally would,
mhm.
and see how you guys like it. And they loved it. I'm like, all right, so now I'm gonna jack up my prices and sell this full, full on, and um, then everything shut down.
Yeah, which is awful, but amazing because you did so much. You built such a that caused you to, in a way, take a step back and build a really strong foundation to be able to where you're sitting today.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy because I remember I was trying to sell people on this.
Yeah,
I was doing like video calls and stuff, trying to sell people. Like,
yeah.
yeah, at that time, I only did one-on-one consulting, like kind of high ticket stuff.
Hmm.
Now I have a range of products, so like, cheaper courses and all that. But at
Wow.
the time, it was just that one-on-one consulting.
Hmm.
And it was kind of crazy because I had hired like a business coach at the time who was like, do not charge less than 1K
Hmm.
kind of thing, right? And it was such a weird period of growth because I'm just like, I'm sitting here today and like, yeah, I mean, your thing is really interesting and really cool, and I like it, but like nothing is open right now.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
kind
so
of
it was,
sorry, yeah.
yeah, no, it was such a weird, time. I mean, I would say that was like me really learning sales. If
Yeah,
you, yeah,
definitely. And also learning and growing through the imposter syndrome of it when you do launch a business and then you have to price point yourself, knowing that you are still new and you are naive, but you can't sell yourself in that way because no one will go to you.
well, yeah, and it's really interesting because I still have people coming to me. They think that what I do is free, right? They're like, yeah, I have all these points. Can you tell me how to use them? I'm like, yeah, I charge money for it. And they're like, oh wait, you charge money for them? I'm like, well, how the hell do you think I,
Make
you
money.
know, like live? You know what I mean?
You're like, it is a business, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting. People, well, as for, I mean, I do give a friends and family discount. I do that, but at the same time, I'm also just like, like this took years of work. This is a craft. This is a skill that I honed, and I'm happy to teach you how to do it too, but doesn't mean I'm going to do it for free.
Yeah, entirely. Entirely. And there's certain people that do get the friends and family discount, but like at what cost, you know? At what cost?
Yeah,
Got to figure out the exchange there. There's got to be some form of energy exchange there, you know?
that's it. And then people now for my one-on-one clients, because I actually had the weirdest things happen to me. Like when I started increasing my prices, I noticed oddly enough that I would attract clients who would pay me the money, no questions asked,
Hmm.
and then would just completely disappear off the face of the earth. And I'm like, you've paid me a good chunk of money and you're just not. They're like, yeah, I'll get to it. I'll get to it.
And then they don't, but
Uh,
you're just in there like, okay, I guess I'll just fuck it.
yeah, and I'm getting to the point now where like, if you want to work with me one on one, I first of all, before you even get to the money, like I do a long questionnaire because I'm
Yeah.
just like, I want to work with people who are serious.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course I've increased my prices and everything. But yeah, like I charge that kind of money because I only want to work with people who are serious.
Hmm.
That said, I do have like I said, kind of like how I don't think travel should be gate kept
Yeah.
by money. I don't think this knowledge should be gate kept either by money. So that's why I have a lot of free resources on my website.
Mhm.
I have, a course which is much cheaper, different price points, all that. So I'm trying to make it trying to accommodate it to all budgets too,
Yeah.
because I want everyone to have this knowledge. But
Yeah.
yeah, if I'm gonna spend time with you one on one, like you got to be serious.
Yeah. Building out like, because it's not only are you just like, hey, here's lessons plan, it's like you're making it applicable to their lives specifically. You're going through their personal things, their personal lifestyles, where they want to go, their goals. Like it's so personal that they need to be able to reciprocate that time and energy back, you know?
That, and also I like to work with clients over a long period of time
Yeah.
because this stuff does take, like, I would say it takes at least a year for you to get it right, but then you're set for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Well, it's so fascinating. Can you explain that process a little bit? Like how, like at least just that specific sentence, like takes a year and then you're set for the rest of your life. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I base my consulting around what I consider to be the 5 pillars of travel mastery. This is something that I came up with. And the 5 pillars are basically, I call it the DE ratio. That's a finance term. I know, debt to equity, but no, I use it as dollar to experience ratio, which basically means how can I get as much experience for as little dollar as possible? So maximizing that ratio. So that's in terms of like, if I can get a flight for X amount of money for cheaper, why wouldn't I? And I kind of show people how to find the cheap flights, cheap hotels, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And it's not about being cheap, it's just about finding value.
Yeah.
And so number two then is leveraging points and miles for maximum value. And so this is like where you can get a lot of value. This is where like, okay, and I would say this is the one that kind of takes the most time as well for people to understand is where should you open your loyalty programs? What credit cards should you open? How do
Mhm.
you transfer your points? How do you use the points? How do you know you're getting the best value? Um, when you pay cash for a flight, how do you know where to credit the points? That
Mhm.
kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
That takes a while accumulating those points, right? And even going back to the DE ratio, that's, you know, my least favorite question that I get is I got a trip coming up in 2 weeks. Can you help me out?
Mhm.
And it's like, no, like if you're
Absolutely not.
actually yes, but and that whole thing of like, okay, if you're taking a big international trip, I want you to come to me months in advance,
Yeah.
at least 2 to 3 months in advance.
Yep.
So that's kind of why it takes a bit of time. Then there's also this whole idea of like, how do you avoid fees, right? Such as foreign transaction fees, ATM fees, all that. You want to get the right debit card to use when you go abroad to withdraw cash. You want to get the right credit cards that have no fees. Then in terms of compensation, that's the fourth pillar where it's like, okay, sorry, I didn't clarify. The third pillar is avoiding these junk fees. The fourth
Yeah.
pillar is compensation, where, people don't necessarily know when they're entitled to compensation. And if they are, they don't know how to go get it. So I show them how to do that as well. And then the last pillar is just maximize. Again, I'm using another finance term, ROE, but I'm going to call that return on experiences, right? Like, how do you get the best experiences?
Yeah.
So that also means minimizing headaches, right? So, how do you know where to, for example, or how soon should you renew your passport? Do you need a visa? That kind of stuff, right? As well as how do you avoid scams? How do you make sure that you're getting the best experience? So
Yeah.
as you can see, it's very comprehensive and it sounds like a lot, which is why I like to work with people over a year,
Mhm.
because that way I can kind of walk them through the whole process and then they're kind of on their own. They're like, okay, I've got it. I
Yeah.
can do it.
Now they really are set, which is why the investment into it is worth more, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't price my stuff if I didn't think people could get at least 10x value out of that.
Entirely. And that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. And I love that it just was an inspiration for you from when you were younger, but the road that we have to take to get to that kind of part for it all to click is always, it's all about the journey, not the destination. It's just,
Right.
and then when you get there, you're like, oh, that makes sense why I was interested in this and why I was interested in that. And, our whole like soul's life purpose and everything and laws of attraction and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the life that I thought I'd be living, I turned 30 next week,
Okay. Ooh,
and
happy early birthday.
thank you. And it's insane. If you'd asked me 10 years ago what I thought I'd be at 30, it would look nothing like what I'm at right now.
What do you think it would look like?
I mean, I thought I'd be, I thought I'd be filthy rich. I'm gonna be honest. I thought I'd be like filthy rich. I
Just
thought I'd be like
dollar bills.
living in some penthouse, like all of that kind of stuff, Because that was, when I was younger, that was like my big thing is like I just want to be rich.
Hmm.
Uh, and I didn't understand. I had no like forget personal finance, but I'm talking, when you understand like the spiritual aspect of money, like I had no knowledge of that.
Yeah.
Um, there were also just things that I was carrying from my childhood that I wasn't aware of at all. So,
Hmm.
for example, like, yeah, I was always a very ambitious person.
Yeah.
Um, but there always was kind of this like parasitic kind of energy pulling me back. So it led to things like chronic fatigue. Like my whole life until like very recently, I always just felt tired for no reason.
Yeah.
And I would started to get chronic migraines. I started to get chronic jaw tension, blow, like it just all these really uncomfortable feelings. And it
Hmm.
really frustrated me because I was like, I felt like I had my foot on the gas, but someone else had the foot on the brake.
Mm.
And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was that I was trying to escape. Because if I look back at my childhood, it was a very, I had strict parents. I had strict parents, but a lot of people have strict parents. And there was just something that I was looking to escape, and I did not know what it was. It was kind of, like I said, this dark cloud, parasitic energy.
Yeah.
Um, it's funny, I went to a Reiki session like last weekend or something, and the woman, it was really funny. She said, when I came to work on you, um, I really felt this dark energy, and I had the desire to kind of hold you like how I would hold an infant,
Hmm.
which was kind of this whole, because I knew this stuff started before I was able to consciously think.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that validation of like this happened very young. So the last, I would say at least 2, 3 years have been really working through that in some way or the other.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like I'm coming out on the other side of that. But what I really need to teach myself now is patience
Mm.
and surrender.
That's
Yeah.
so funny. I already had a million thoughts from that because this is right up my alley. Energy, Reiki, yoga, meditation.
Yeah.
This is everything I absolutely love. Getting in flow, feeling the flow. What is flow? The actual energy exchanges of money. That I love all this stuff. But then you finished it with right now learning the lesson of patience and surrender. And that literally for the last 2 months I've been like, all right, universe, I get it. My lesson is patience. So I've literally just been the last 2 weeks just like sitting here and just letting kind of life do its work because when we have such big goals and aspirations and also we're working through all the healing and trauma and stuff, it's like we planted those seeds so long ago. They have so much
Mhm.
momentum and now we've done so much work to break down all that negative stuck dormant energy that's been like withholding us. So we spend time releasing and focusing on it, and that's work. That's exhausting. And then finally, once we kind of like heal a good lump sum and can like elevate more and raise our vibrational frequency, then and like able to let go of more, then it is in the part where you're just standing there and now you just have to wait because it's like there's nothing to do. You already did all those, you already planted all the seeds. Like,
Yes.
literally.
Yes.
And the more you try to do things to get to those goals, the more you're just creating, like, in a way, like obstacles for like your goal to come to you?
Yeah. So for me, the interesting thing was the obstacle was, there was that dark cloud is a cloud of painful emotions that I inherited
Mm-hmm.
from someone very close to me.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when you're an infant and you have this stuff, like your executive function is almost non-existent. So whatever energy you feel, you soak up like a sponge and you confuse it as your own, even though you're not.
That you do.
So for me, I think those emotions were just so painful that I would try and think my way out of those emotions instead of feeling them. So what that kind of taught me was I refused to feel my emotions from a very young age. And it was almost like I tried to manufacture emotions from my thoughts.
Mm.
Uh, which is what led to this chronic overthinking, which is what led to the chronic fatigue, because that's
Yeah.
exhausting.
Yeah.
That's what led to a lot of jaw tension, because what that does is that blocks your communication center, your throat, right? So there's a lot of tension there. And yeah, so it was really interesting kind of working through all of this.
Yeah. And that's why doing things like this, coming on a podcast and talking and kind of working literally physically through that helps you break through it and stuff. Like a lot of people say, for example, singing is an amazing way to like work and get the energy moving in your throat chakra and everything. And a lot of like chanting and humming and like if you're gonna go
Right.
down the more spiritual route. But yeah, no, it's super, super, super fascinating. And like, what do you I guess more so, what are you feeling about the universe giving you that lesson right now? Like, how is learning patience for you?
You know what? It's I'm at this point where I feel like it's what I want. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, in the past, I used to try those kinds of things still in order to get,
Mm-hmm.
right? But now my whole thing is like, first of all, I'm grateful that I can that I can even feel again,
Mm-hmm.
after not being able to feel for so long. And when I say feel, I'm talking like consciously feeling,
Yeah.
right? Because when you bottle up emotions, you still feel them, but you feel them unconsciously, which is when you feel out of control.
Mm-hmm.
For me, the ability to consciously feel my emotions is such an amazing gift.
Mm-hmm.
And to trust myself enough to surrender is
Mm-hmm.
an even more. So it's almost like it's this weird thing where it's like I don't need the universe to give me anything, and I'm not going to say like I live my whole life with that knowledge just yet.
Yeah.
But I have glimpses of it, right? Where I'm just like, just this whole idea of surrendering is blissful.
Mm-hmm. Definitely is.
Yeah.
Have to get over the fear of releasing control, you know? It's like so scared to trust yourself and trust the process and like not try to do anything at all. And I got full body chills when you were saying that because this is also like a big lesson for me right now too.
Hmm.
Like just so many things have popped up and been like, okay, that completely correlates with here's more patience.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's
It,
so
it's
true.
Patience is tough in our society because we live in a society of deadlines. We live in a society of hey, I need you to do this ASAP, or like, just I'm gonna call it manufactured urgency.
Yeah, I feel like that's
There's-
a great way of putting it.
I forget who said it, but there's a quote that says, I think it's like a Chinese, like Lao Tzu, Confucius, the Confucianists and all that stuff. I think it says nature does not hurry, but it still gets everything done.
Hmm, entirely. It does. That it does. And that nature is energy. And energy is our thoughts, words, feelings, all of that jazz. Thank you for sharing about that part of finally consciously feeling your emotions and how that feels good. Because I think too, a lot of men and people who identify as men like have this societal norms of what that's supposed to look like, and you can't be emotional. And this is just like a far stretch off of that topic, but just how it, in a way, teaches them to repress their emotions in a way because it's not fit to the norm and stuff. And we're not taught from a young age how to properly deal with our emotions.
Yeah, so on that, what I'll refer to is, which is what has really been helping me, is the whole idea of yin and yang,
Mm,
masculine, feminine, and the negative emotions that I inherited were mostly feminine. And so what the way the unconscious masculine or wounded masculine would
mhm,
respond to that is through this whole idea of trying to fix.
mhm,
So when you're in your head, you're just always trying to fix.
mhm,
And so that's like a over indulgence in masculine energy, completely suppressing your inner feminine, right? Even though like, you know, I have a male body, like I still have feminine energy in me, right?
yeah,
So that is the whole idea of
mhm,
right? And that's surrender is a very feminine trait.
mhm.
And for me to surrender, even I know a lot of women who have, they're very career oriented and stuff, and I know they struggle with surrender because they've been forced into their masculine in the career world.
Yeah.
Because I'm going through coaching right now in kind of that whole area, and the common theme among the women in that community, it's a co-ed community, is yes, I've spent my whole life in my masculine because that's how I thought I was supposed to function.
Mhm.
Um, and they're being taught to surrender. For me, it was like I need some of that energy too because I've suppressed it so much.
Yeah.
And
Entirely.
so the whole it's tough, like trusting to surrender, like, but it's also an interesting conundrum where it's like the more I try to control, the more out of control I am.
Exactly. The more you're
So
actually, yeah, and that's the like flip of it all is that surrender is total control. Like it's
yes.
just nuts. And I was actually just talking to my sister earlier about that and doing more things to bring up the femininity in me because I have such big career goals and sometimes I feel like I kind of feel out of touch with that side of myself and through like all my yoga training and everything, you learn all about that, the yin and the yang, our chakra systems, and how everything does have the either feminine or masculine energies. So like I try to do, my yoga, my spiritual practices along those lines and like do certain mudras with the feminine side more and connecting that. But sometimes I just need to go. And she actually, it was so funny. I told her that I was going to like a dance class with one of my friends here so I can like, feel more of that divine feminine and bring that out a little bit. And my sister literally goes, yeah, that's why I miss the clubs.
Oh my God. You know what that reminds me of? I saw this TikTok like a couple months ago. Was it it was this woman that was like, twerking releases trauma and stored in your hips or some shit like
No,
that.
it definitely does. Literally moving your physical body. Like
It's
that's why yoga is good. And that's why those
yeah,
dance
yeah, yeah.
classes are good on an energetic level.
So I agree that you do have a lot of trauma stored in your hips, but I also feel like, you know,
There's other
there's
ways.
well, there's also I feel like twerking is like a very unconscious thing. I feel like it's not like a very
I
it's not
feel pretty conscious.
maybe I've never done it, so I wouldn't know.
You gotta,
But
you gotta try, man.
let's see.
That'll bring out the divine feminine in you.
Actually, that's really funny. Now that I think about it, there's this one time earlier, like last year, I I took shrooms and
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I love shrooms, by the way.
Yeah, I think they're great. They heal people. Mushrooms are better than humans.
Oh, I agree. I remember I was like, I just didn't feel anything for a while. I was like, the thing didn't kick in. I don't feel anything. And then I just remember all of a sudden I just started keeling over in laughter. Like
Yeah.
everything was funny. Like
Hmm.
it was actually the laughter was almost painful. Like I had to lie down.
Literally.
But like everything was so funny and I just was so tripped out of my mind. I was like, oh, I just want to dance.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so no, I have felt that where I just was like, my entire lower body, which it was, I think was like suppressed at that point, just became activated.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I believe that when you're in that state, specifically with shrooms and marijuana, just because they're like the only natural drugs like that, they get you more in tune with your body on an energetic level, especially when you're already aware of all these things, you already have all the knowledge. Then when you add those in there, it's like a little extra kick into that space of yourself. It's not that you're like tripping balls, it's just that you're like actually
yeah,
in tune with your body and its energy and it's crazy. And so I think that's funny. That was literally your body being like, okay, now move. Like now you got to get this out, move it going, you
it
know?
was, it was such like a joyful experience. Because like I think again, going back to my initial thing, it was like I could feel it. It was such like a pleasurable experience to just feel it.
Yeah, no, it's so cool. It's so important because, like, we also are raised in a society that's like, oh, they're weird if they're doing that, or don't do that, or you don't do this right, you don't do that right. And it like suppresses so many people from just having fun.
Exactly. And then it's so funny because they want to show us that that's like normal when in reality they're the ones like that is the dysfunction. That
Exactly. Like,
that's a dysfunction, not us.
literally humans and all animals like have their own dances and their own whatever, like literally most animals have their own like mating dances. Like that's a way to do that when you are moving your energy like that in a synchronistic way. Like it is what we're supposed to do. What else are we supposed to do? Just type at a desk all day? It's so unnatural.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
To each their own, right?
yep.
Yeah, that's why we gotta dance and we gotta travel and step out of our comfort zone and shift our energies up and shake things up a bit because that really does shape us. Like, do you feel like your travels have influenced you to step more into your spiritual space and like kind of evolve in that way?
Yeah, it's really funny because I think part of the reason why I love travel so much was, again, me being having a male body, all that is I'm very organized and I like to plan things.
Mhm.
And that includes my travels too, right? Like I'm not a spontaneous traveler in that like, oh, I'm gonna get on a flight and go to Hawaii tonight.
Yeah.
However, when I am at the destination,
Mhm.
I really don't like to have anything planned.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating.
Now, unfortunately for my business, I have to plan and curate content. But aside from that, like I set aside a couple days for that, and then I set aside a couple days where I'm just like I can go do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah, as you should.
So
We need to remember to take those days to literally do whatever the hell we want.
yeah, and I'll just, I have no problem just wandering around. I have
Yeah.
no problem just like stepping into somewhere where it's like, oh, it's a nice little local spot. I do encourage wandering quite a bit. I mean, obviously, do your research of like where to avoid and stuff, right? Like you don't want to be wandering around South London, for
Mhm.
example. But yeah, like I'm very
Why?
spend 2 seconds and you'll see why. But yeah, like I love getting the feel of the place.
Yeah. Yeah, entirely. Experiencing it, seeing the different cultures, like just some different perspective. Like it's insane. It really does shape us. I just always love traveling and I'm big into astrology. So that is all Sagittarius energy, which is all up in my birth chart. So I love to travel, love to be adventurous. I'm the type of person to do spontaneous ass trips like that. So you and your business loads people like me. I'm just kidding.
You know what? Here's what I will say to that. I will say when it comes to the finances, when you have the points and everything, like as points are great for spontaneous travel, right? Because actually,
Yeah.
something very interesting is there's this period I would say between like let's say you're traveling December 31st of this year, right?
Mhm.
There's this weird period between like the beginning of March and December 1st where award fairs are going to be the most expensive
Hmm.
because they want people to pay by cash. They want cash,
Hmm.
right? However, when you get closer to that date, and I'm not going to say this is always the case, but I've noticed this quite a lot, is where it's like, oh, well, people aren't paying cash, so let's open up some seats for award availability. So that's when it's like, okay, I can see some of these points, the point values coming down.
Yeah.
Like, I can give an example. There was, I think, December 2022 Christmas, I had to go to London
Mhm.
to see my family wanted to go, so I wanted to go with them. Um, or they guilted me into going with them. That's a different story.
Oh, you got
But
to go to London. That's a privilege.
no, I know. It was great. I did that was such a great trip. But anyway, I wanted to fly in business class
Hmm.
because it was United's business class and I'd never gotten to try it and I heard really good things about it. So I'm like, all right, this is my opportunity to try it.
Yeah.
It was like 120,000 points one way, which is insane.
Yeah. That's a lot.
And so, but I was like, you know what? I really want to do this. I'm going to bite the bullet. And I had enough points, so I did it. Uh,
Wow.
now, like a week before, I was like, you know what? Let me see what the award rates are now. I
Hmm.
realized if I switched the flight to the day before, and I noticed even like the other award rates were like way lower now.
Yeah.
It was only like 60,000 points. So I got the other 60,000 points refunded into my account. And
That's so cool.
so things like that. And that's kind of when I started to notice this trend of like, oh, yeah, when they expect you to pay cash, that's when the award rates are going to be the highest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I'm thinking of that for when I need to book a flight to Peru. So I've been like looking at them here and there, but not too much. And then I'm like, okay, do I do it on this card? Do I do it on that card? So we'll we'll link to your courses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, do you have a website for it?
Yeah, so it's 1%travel.club.
Dope.
Yeah, and also what I can do is I can create a discount code for 25% off for the listeners. So,
Oh, everybody hear that? 25% off. That's so, so exciting, actually.
yeah. You know what? I'll make the code later, but we can just keep it simple, raw 25% off.
Raw
Yeah.
25. I'm 25, so that's pretty much me.
Yay. There we
Oh, I was
go.
gonna ask too. You said earlier you were like, hey, if 20-year-old me saw me now, like 10 years ago, saw me now, like oh my God, who know what you would think? What about, because I'm 25, so I always love the perspective of like kind of like if you could tell your 25-year-old self something, what would it be?
I could tell my 25-year-old something. If I could tell him something, I would say there is a part of you that wants to go inward, and there's a part of you that's being pulled outward. Trust the part of you to go inward. And
Hmm.
when I say that was I knew that I needed to do a lot of inner exploring,
Mm-hmm.
but material success was still very much my priority and my main thing. And it was actually then that was a difficult thing. And that was again the whole thing of having one foot on the gas, someone else having a foot on the brake,
Yeah.
where it was like I didn't achieve anything because I never tended to what I had internally. Now, I think different people have different, obviously, levels of emotional baggage that they're carrying. Mine was like literally to the point where no matter how hard I worked, like things would manifest here and there, but like it
Yeah.
just it just was never consistent.
Yeah, no, it's actually truly using your own internal compass and also having a relationship with it. So you got to go inward so you can, in a way, like practice what those like real confirmations are, those real yes or no's, that real trust in your intuition. It's insane. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing that. Literally, I believe that, like, nothing's a coincidence and everything kind of always happens the way as it should. So your advice, like, actually completely resonated with something that I am like mentally battling through right now. So I'm like, wow, this is perfect for me. So I hope that resonated for some of the listeners too, because that was
yeah,
good. Deep. Great advice. Yeah. Yeah, we're so focused on like comparing and looking at other people's successes rather than just tuning inward and being like, okay, I will get there, trust in the process, but this is the work I need to do now?
absolutely. And it's really interesting because I don't know what it was, but I don't know if this were the guides, spirit guides or whatever, but like the pull to go inward was actually really strong.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I mean, like I said, it manifested in as chronic pain. So I literally had no choice.
Yeah.
Even though, and then what I would do this thing where I'd like, okay, I'll go inward, but like I'll only do this for a little bit of time and then I want to get back out there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then the same thing would happen over again. And it's almost like them saying, like, you haven't learned your lesson.
Yep.
And now, it's funny. I look at what feel like, again, like my lessons, patience and surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about this. I'm like, you know what? This is a skill I can practice like literally every second
Yep.
of my life. And you know how they say like it takes 10,000 hours to master something? So I Google like how many years is 10,000 hours? And you know, that's a year. So if I like spent 1 year, like a little over a year. So if I spent like 1.5 years like really mastering the skill, I mean,
Yeah.
first of all, like I'm also not going to be thinking about time like that,
Mm-hmm.
but also, in a very short period of time, things could just shift very radically if I committed to the bit of practicing surrender and patience.
Mm-hmm.
Which, this was a realization I had a couple days ago.
Yeah. No,
So,
entirely. And that's why they say sticking with the meditation, sticking with the waking up every day, bringing in gratitude and doing all of that, it's a practice. It's a mindset. It is a way of living and being. And sometimes, like you were saying earlier, like the materialistic driven part of ourselves like gets pulled back out and it's like, oh no, but I gotta do this. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, no, you don't.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
You really, it'll all come in tenfold. Just sit. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, entirely. Oh, well, this was absolutely amazing. Let me see if I have any other questions, honestly. I feel like we hit so many great topics. Again, you can find you at the 1% travel.club, and then you're also on Instagram at
Yeah, Instagram and TikTok, 1%travel.club. You can also follow my personal Instagram. It's wrote my name Rohithamruthur. But yeah, I post a lot of content, free content, so please eat it up all you want.
yeah, yeah, no, that's absolutely amazing. I'm definitely gonna scroll through myself too. I did a little bit, but I need to deep dive. So when I book my Peru trip, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on and meeting with us and talking about what you do and sharing your, bits of energy in your life with the viewers, the listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And before we sign off, as always, I have everybody pick a song. So your favorite song and has been since 2013 is Real Slow by Miami Horror. Can you share a little bit about that?
You know what's really funny? Because when I talk about patience and surrender, it's like, oh yeah, real slow. No, that was
Literally.
yeah, yeah. That was a period of my life. That was a rough period. And that was one of those periods where I knew something was wrong, but again, like I didn't allow myself to feel it.
Mhm.
So instead I distracted myself with Grand Theft Auto 5. It was great. I don't regret that one bit.
No, never.
It had just come out my sophomore year of college.
Mhm.
So I beat the game in 1 week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Play that song on repeat.
Well, so the song wasn't actually in the game, but the band Miami Horror had a song in there, and I really like that one song. It was
Mhm.
Sometimes, and then I go listen to the rest of their songs. I'm like, oh, this is a great one. And then that song came out. I was like, oh, I really like this song. And that was actually a period where I kind of came out of it. I
Yeah.
came out of that like, sad state a little bit, and I actually, started to. That was like the first bit of like self-belief, self-trust before I hit the wall of all of my previous trauma.
Yeah.
So that was like a very nice,
Part.
memorable period where I thought I was like really making progress in my life that I could just, think my way. But I was feeling good,
Yeah.
and that song was kind of reminds me of that time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. Yeah. Now applicable to now.
Yes, yeah,
Entirely. Well, with that, we will all practice patience. Yeah. Because everybody definitely needs more of it. Even if it is our lesson right now, everybody else can definitely use some patience in them.
absolutely,
For sure. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on again. I love talking with you. The past couple times we've talked has been great. I love how you're on the energetic wave. It is just amazing. It's what I love to see in the world.
absolutely. Always happy to share.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. All right, well, that concludes our episode. Thank you all for listening. Tune in every week on Wednesdays. Love you all. Love yourself. Peace and blessings. We're out.